guys ready? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Seems like we were just here 24 hours ago. We only have one presentation today. I'm sure you got the emails. The other one had a conflict and weren't able to correct that. First order of business would be a motion to approve the minutes from yesterday.
There are no additions or corrections. I move they be accepted as submitted.
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Is there any old business? Not seeing any old business. We'll get right to our first presentation. So if you want to come forward and introduce yourself, you have 20 minutes and then 10 minutes of question and answer.
Your microphone's not on.
You got to turn your mic on. I'm sorry.
Got it. Thank you. That's much better. Hi, my name is Lindsay Rye. I'm the founder of Her Refuge. Before we get started, we just wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity to submit our proposal and also present to each of you today. We know that each and every one of you have committed much time and energy to this cause, and we're so very grateful for each of you. We also want to specifically thank Francine and each of you members of the Bridging the Gap subcommittee, as well as the Lenawee County Board of Commissioners for this opportunity today. So thank you very much. I'd like to start by just sharing more about our board. So again, as I said, my name is Lindsay Rye, and you're going to see some photos pop up here of our board members as well.
Just let them know when you need the next slide.
Perfect. So I am a licensed professional counselor, and I have my own counseling practice here in Adrian called Sparrow Counseling. Another board member is Sherry Smith. She's a teacher at Lenawee Christian School. We have Daniel Schultz. He's an IT consultant. Shanda Kaiser. She's a labor and delivery nurse. And then we have a couple board members with us today as well.
I'm Heather Brown. I just celebrated 30 years in banking, but I'm a vice president with West Banco.
Hi, I am Jessica Roddy. I'm the associate broker co-owner of Excel Realty, which is located right here in Adrian.
Great. And then I'm actually going to turn it over to Jessica, and she's going to start our presentation by sharing about our organization.
So yeah, as Lindsay said, our organization is right in our acronym, Heal, Empower, Restore. Her Refuge is committed to establishing a free, biblically based long-term residential treatment program for female adolescents here in Lenawee County. We will serve teen girls ages 13 to 17 who are experiencing symptoms of mood disorders, substance use disorders, trauma-related disorders, and eating disorders. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So our project is called the Land Acquisition Project. We, Her Refuge, are requesting $150,000 to purchase up to 10 acres of land right here in Lenawee County. We hope that this will serve a greater purpose by being able to create our long-term residential treatment facility. This investment represents a vital step in providing this program and will lay the groundwork for healing and building this home that allows us to offer this program. So according to Exhibit E, I'm going to share a little bit about the core strategies that we're going to touch on. So we are going to broaden the scope of recovery services here in Lenawee County. And then within Schedule B, we're going to treat opioid use disorder by expanding the availability of treatment, providing trauma treatment. We're going to support people in treatment and recovery by providing comprehensive wraparound services, providing counseling and residential treatment, and then connecting people who need the help to the help that they need by supporting treatment and recovery programs focused on young people. So the population that we are going to serve are teen girls in Lenawee County who are experiencing symptoms of mood disorders, substance use disorders, trauma-related disorders, and eating disorders, including opioid use disorder and co-occurring substance use disorders and mental health conditions. We know that there are a lot of great outpatient counselors here in Lenawee County, and you guys have seen the endorsement letters from quite a few of them, but there are no long-term care treatment facilities in Lenawee County, and that is going to be our main goal within and our focus that this project is going to help us provide. So I'm going to ask that Lindsay come forward and share some of the statistics that are known locally and nationally.
Thank you, Jess. So as she shared, I'm going to share some data with you. So adolescent substance use, particularly opioid misuse, is a rising, escalating public health emergency that's causing devastating consequences for youth nationwide. According to the CDC, 14% of high school students have misused prescription opioids, a risk factor that dramatically increases the likelihood of progressing to opioid use disorder. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, among youth ages 12 to 17, 18.5% or 2.2 million met the criteria for substance use disorder in the past year. Female adolescents remain particularly vulnerable to major depressive episodes, substance use, and suicidal ideation and behaviors. And that's why we've chosen to focus specifically on this vulnerable population. So I'm going to share some national data that specifically highlights what they're dealing with as well. Next slide, please. Female adolescents were more likely than males to have major depressive episodes. Next slide. In 2023, nearly 3 in 10, 27.3% female adolescents had a major depressive episode in the past year. 3 in 4, 76.3% female adolescents with a major depressive episode had severe impairments. And as Jess had shared earlier, we're planning to focus on those that need more intensive treatment. So a lot of those that will serve will be those with some of those more severe impairments. Female adolescents who had a major depressive episode in the past year were more likely to use the following substances: illicit drugs, marijuana, opioid misuse, binge alcohol, tobacco products, or nicotine vaping. As you can see from the data here, the opioid misuse isn't clinically significant, but based on the graph that you can see, there's a higher use among female adolescents that have a major depressive episode. I want to take a look at suicidal ideation and behaviors amongst female adolescents. 17% had thoughts of suicide, 8.6% made a suicide plan, and 5.1% attempted suicide. And as you can see noted here is that there were many that didn't answer these questions. So these numbers might be even higher than what's represented here. And so next we'd like to look at statistics and the data for right here in our own community. So these are taken from the 2023 to 2024 Michigan Profile for Healthy Youth. This is an annual survey that's conducted by the Michigan Department of Education and Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. And it goes out to school districts throughout the state of Michigan. And these numbers are specifically focusing on 9th and 11th grade female students in Lenawee County. 37% reported that they lived with someone who is having a problem with alcohol or drug use, which we know is a significant risk factor for developing a substance use disorder. 10.8% had their first drink of alcohol before age 13. The average age of first alcohol use was 13 years old. The average age of first being drunk was 13.8 years old, and the average age of first marijuana use was 13 and a half years old. So as you can see here, we have some risk factors such as living with someone, being in a home with someone who has a problem with drug or alcohol use, and then also early substance use as well. Those are both risk factors, which is why we've decided as an organization to specifically focus on early intervention. Again, this is from the Michigan Profile for Healthy Youth, and this takes a look at suicidal ideation and behaviors among teen girls right here in Lenawee County. 1 in 4 girls, 26.6%, seriously considered attempting suicide during the past 12 months. Nearly 1 in 5, 19.8%, made a plan about how they would attempt suicide during the past 12 months. And over 1 in 10, 11.6%, attempted suicide 1 or more times during the past 12 months. And again, remember, these are just taken from 9th and 11th grade students. So if they would have also included 12th and 11th grade students, these numbers could have been higher as well. And if you'll recall from the previous slide, these numbers right here in our community are higher than they are at a national level as well. And each of us sitting in this room, we know that these aren't just numbers, it's not just data, but these are real people living in our community. These are teen girls in our community that are struggling. For some of us even listening or present, they could be our daughters, our granddaughters, our nieces, those that we have a personal connection with. So these are more than just numbers, but a girl right here in our community. So that's why we feel like it is so critical to provide services to this vulnerable teen girl population and offer residential treatment services that are not currently present within our community. So next I'm going to turn it over to Heather, and she's going to share more about our project timeline.
Thank you, Lindsay. Our plan is both structured and achievable. In 2026, we plan to begin by securing grant funding and finalizing funding agreement. By second quarter, we hope to be swiftly moving towards evaluation of properties and conducting the preliminary site visits. And by the end of 2026, our plan is to have purchased the land. As you can see, every step within this timeline has been carefully designed to ensure momentum, accountability, and measurable progress. Next slide, please. Okay. The scope of work is pretty straightforward, but it's powerful. So first, we'll identify and evaluate properties, ensuring that the site meets environmental, legal, and zoning requirements. And then once the right property has been secured, we'll close on that land. So at that point, we'll be positioned to move directly into the next phase, which is going to be developing the residential campus that will be built with care and purpose for the girls who will one day call it a home. You can see up here at the front is a look at the long-term care facility or home that we plan to build. As far as measures of success on our next slide, we wanted to just kind of talk about what those short-term successes look like. And in the short term, it really is all about momentum and trust. Acquiring the land in Lenawee County will mean that we're shovel ready. And it shows donors and grant makers that this vision is moving forward with progress. So each milestone is really building confidence, encouraging more partners to step in and to support the mission. And then from a long-term perspective, our true measure of success is really found in the lives of the girls that we'll be serving. When the program is fully operational, we'll see lasting healing, empowerment, and restoration. It shows families, within that will be reunited with each other. Futures will be reclaimed, and we'll be able to combat the cycles of addiction with our young women right here in our community. A sustained donor support will ensure that the program is not short-lived, but it's a legacy that builds hope and that lasts for generations to come. Sustainability is an important part. One of the things that I love that we have on our vision board here is that we're not just building a facility, we're building futures. This is our opportunity to be proactive right here in Lenawee County with our young adolescents and to intervene early. But our funding strategy really is blended with major donors, churches, business partnerships, grants, and then community engagement as well. We're creating a stable foundation that will ensure that Her Refuge will be here for the long run. Your partnership today is a vital first step in making this legacy of healing, empowerment, and restoration for our girls tomorrow. Okay, next slide. Just to dig into sustainability a little bit further, just wanted to share some of the activities that we've been doing. Some of you in this room have been part of those or have had an introduction to Her Refuge. But September is nationally recognized as Suicide Prevention Month, making this a perfect time to shine a light on our mission. And we are so honored to be a recipient of the WLEN Hometown Hope Grant on the radio in the month of September. If you haven't had the opportunity to listen in, you still have some time to do that. But what we love about it is that we're getting an opportunity to talk to our community about the need. There's 5 PSAs that are running each day that talk about our mission. We have had the opportunity to do a live interview. We've also done a community interview. And then just last Wednesday, we were at the Christian Family Center doing a live remote, talking to our community about our refuge and what our opportunity is moving forward. At that same time, we have been meeting with business supporters, churches, and community partners so that we can create multiple pathways for people to join our movement. So together, really these strategies are the financial backbone that will support Her Refuge long-term, long after this land purchase that we're requesting today. Next slide. Okay, so the budget, we're requesting $150,000, and this is a look at how those funds will be used. $125,000 of that is the estimated cost to purchase the property. We wanted to allocate $15,000 to cover due diligence and professional fees, and then, of course, to have $10,000 in contingency reserves. From a timeline perspective, we expect that the funds will be used within 6 to 8 months, meaning that the investment that you make today will immediately be put to work to create a lasting impact for teen girls right here in Lenawee County. And then on our last slide, we just wanted to remind everybody at Her, our mission is simple, but it's profound. And it's to heal, to empower, and to restore young girls who are crying out for help right here. So you've seen the data today, and you've seen our plan and what our path forward looks like. And now we'd really like to invite you to become part of our story and help us to not just build a facility, but a refuge where lives can be changed and hope can be renewed. So at this time, I'd like to invite Lindsay and Jessica back up and open it up to you for comments or any questions that you might have.
Thank you. To the committee, do we have any questions to Sheriff Bevere?
Thank you. I do have a question. Do you currently have a location in mind?
We don't have a current location in mind simply because real estate goes so quickly. We do have obviously locations that we want to be in. We want to be located outside the city limits simply because we want to keep these girls safe and secure. We want to be within close proximity of the hospital as well. So we have an idea of where our location is. We just don't have an actual specific location selected yet.
Brana?
Yes, thanks. Where is the nearest long-term residential treatment program for adolescent girls?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the nearest would be approximately a couple hours away. Grand Rapids offers some services in that area. And then Detroit does offer some residential treatment as well, but our program's still unique with the length of the program, which is 8 to 10 months. So a lot of the programs that are currently in existence are more short-term, like 90 to 180 days.
Can I do a
Sure.
And as a follow-up question, a key difference I see with some treatment programs that I'm somewhat familiar with, your mention is free, that it would be no cost for those coming. And I'd be curious to know what is the estimated cost per resident for all of the treatment and housing and everything that would be required. But I also want to say how important I think that is, knowing someone personally whose daughter would have been the perfect fit for this. And they were desperate and looking for somewhere that had capacity to take their daughter and that would be safe for their daughter and when she could really get help. and they ended up sending her many states away, which was traumatizing for mom and dad,
Yep.
and also drained their retirement account to be able to
Mhm.
cover it. But on the other side of that coin, I don't know if you have projections yet about cost, because it must be staggering.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that personal experience as well. So yeah, there is a great need, accessibility of care, and even for those that have health insurance, there are barriers to treatment. So a big part of our vision is being able to offer our services free of charge because we want those girls that are hurting to be able to get the help that they need and that nothing can prevent them or their families from getting that help. So we've put together an annual budget. So our annual operating costs are 830,000, and then we've done the 3-year budget. So of course, there's a little annual increase with inflation and different expenses that might increase each year. And so part of our campaign is to raise 3 years of our annual operating budget before we even open our doors, so that we have that in place before we offer services and have that foundation before we continue to fundraise for those annual expenses.
Other questions? Judge Morgan?
I know you said $150,000 to obtain the 10 acres. And I'm looking at the blueprint for her future. Obviously, being shovel-ready is wonderful, but then what additional funds are you expecting to require just to have the facility? Obviously, the building's one thing, but every chair, every bed, I take it you'll have a kitchen, pots, pans, et cetera, et cetera. So what are you expecting as far as the requirements to go from shovel-ready to being able to accept individuals into the facility?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our total campaign goal is $6 million. That includes all the costs that would allow us to build the home, also all the furnishings that would be included as part of that, and those 3 years of operating expenses that I mentioned earlier as well.
Do you have any commitments towards any portion of that 6 million today?
We are in the early stages of having conversations right now.
Commissioner Collins?
I have several questions, but I don't want to dominate here, but my background's law enforcement. I was a police officer for 30 years. How do you deal with the fact that you say you have a 13-year-old child that comes into your program, is in there for the 8 to 10 months, whatever the program is, and they go back to the same environment? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, that's, so this is one of the reasons why we want to be located right here in Lenawee County, because we feel that it is important that the families are involved in treatment. So a big part of our treatment program is offering not only individual and group counseling for the residents, but also therapy for their families as well. And so just providing them with the opportunity as well to participate in treatment and to make those changes themselves too.
Okay, I really like the concept of this. I hope you don't,
No,
think
you're
I'm being
fine. You're
negative about it.
fine. Yeah.
because I really do like the concept.
Yeah.
This is comes somewhat like, you build it, they'll come. Your first hurdle, if you would, is this structure.
Mhm.
And I'm personally not sure 150,000 is enough to do that, but,
Mhm.
so your plan is to get the funds to build it,
Yes.
make it shovel ready, start building it, and then start getting funds to run the program. And
So,
if you're not gonna deal, I'm sorry.
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
If
interrupt.
you're not
Go
gonna, as Bronna asked, you're gonna offer this programs free.
Mhm.
Yet you've got to pay staff, you've got to pay maintenance, you've got to pay a myriad of costs. And so your assumption is, in order to pay this, this is all gonna come from grants and donations and so forth.
Yeah, so as Heather mentioned, we have a multi-pronged fundraising strategy, so multiple sources of funding. not depending on one particular source of funding to help sustain the organization. And then alongside of that, we feel like that's a really big part of that. And then our program is actually modeled like after another program that has been offering their services free of charge since 1983.
One more question
Sure.
for me, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
You're gonna house these young ladies for 8 to 10 months. How do you deal with the educational needs?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is part of our program. We didn't get to speak more on that today, but we have many facets to our program. So counseling is one part of that, offering their academic education while they're participating in the program.
In-house?
Yes, in-house. So offering their education, life skills training as well, different opportunities for community involvement, health and wellness, and then also voluntary Bible studies too.
I just want to add to what Lindsay said too. I think it's important to note that our board has been established for roughly 10 years. So we have put in the dedication into the education behind this part of it. So when we say 150 for the land, we've used the resources that we have on our board. Heather's in banking, I'm in real estate. We know these numbers may sound arbitrary to you, but we have put the time and effort into making sure that our budget for the year is thought down to specifically the girl that will be there, their family. We know what it's going to cost to hire a therapist for them, or, to include their education into the program. So some of these numbers that we may be throwing at you have been very intentional and very thought out. So we would invite you, if you do have any further questions about the program itself, we would love to sit with any one of you and share these program thoughts, because the project itself is simple in that we are asking to be able to buy the land, but the program itself is very in-depth and very thought out.
Tim?
I can say after spending 30+ years in child welfare, that this is something that is hugely needed everywhere, and the value of it's just tremendous. So applaud you for your efforts. Two simple questions. One, how many girls at a time would you be serving? And are they all Lenawee County residents?
Yeah, sure. So our home will be able to serve up to 10 girls at one time. And our priority is Lenawee County residents. So that's who we would like to serve. And as you can see from the numbers, I don't think it'll be an issue, unfortunately, to be able to fill those numbers of beds.
Any other questions? Gary? Gary.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Gary,
Yeah.
go ahead,
I
Gary.
didn't mean. Well, I've seen your presentation and I love what you're doing. I worry about what happens if we give you the resources to buy the land and then you're not able to put together the rest of the project. How does that gonna play out?
It's funny that you ask, because we've thought about this question often, specifically with this project. And like Heather shared, we believe strongly in our marketing strategy and our fundraising strategy. We are in the process of interviewing fundraisers to be full-time with us. We are at that stage where it's no longer a volunteer position, where we are going to be hiring somebody to be very strategic in fundraising. I'm sure many of you have been involved in boards before on nonprofits that are fully just fundraising and know that you can't do it in your free time. So we are in the process of doing that. That will hopefully sustain us in the long run. We also have commitment from many individuals that, we want to see a little bit more from you. We want to see a little bit more progress. So we know that, like Heather shared, this is our first milestone. Acquiring the land to build this home is our first milestone, because I think you've all been impacted by the story or have personal stories yourselves of girls in the community. And it pulls on your heartstrings. And we believe in our hearts that the community will rally behind us and help us sustain and be able to fundraise, and along with our strategic fundraising strategy.
Anybody else? Gary?
Do you have any current funds in your program?
Like funds in our bank account currently? Yes. Where we at? We're right around 50,000 currently. And so that's just from being in our silent phase. We've had a couple of large donations, semi-large donations in there. We've had a couple of commitments. And that's from some board matching campaigns that we've done. And then we have a couple of monthly supporters that have been supporting us consistently over the years, monthly.
Anybody else?
That is part of our strategy overall too. When we talked about multi-level donors, an intentional focus on those reoccurring givers is what's going to help to sustain us for the long term. So we have strategies planned around increasing that reoccurring giving, along with reaching out to business partners in the community for gifts to move us forward.
Tim?
Sorry, one more question. Have you considered properties ready-made? Have you considered Boysville or other things like that? So what's your answer to that?
Yes, so we as a board have actually toured many homes. And we were in the beginning stages thinking that we would buy a home and renovate it. And it just became very apparent that that was not an availability within the community. As you can see from our blueprint, we have very strong guidelines from the state of Michigan on what has to be at this home in order for the girls to be safe and secured. So unfortunately, we just don't see homes on the market right now that would give us the vision that we have.
Anybody else? Terry?
Not a question, just a suggestion. Are you familiar with Murray Spear Campus? The board of Murray Spear Campus at one time looked seriously into developing what they were going to refer to as a step-down house. Once they completed the program at Murray Spear, they would go into that and receive treatment necessary. Have you thought of approaching the board to see if they would? They have considerable funds.
That's a great suggestion.
If they would.
We've chatted with many individuals within the community that have ideas for something similar to this. We haven't specifically spoke with Murray Spears, but yeah, no, it's a great suggestion.
It's a large board.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Probably there are 2 or 3 on the board.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Judge Morgan?
I know you said you want to be shovel ready. After shovel ready, how much additional time do you believe before you would be able to start taking some of these at-risk young ladies?
Great question. We would, our absolute dream would be to open our doors in 2028. With receiving this many potentially early of 2026, closing on the property by the end of the year. It's going to take probably at least 12 to 18 months to build this residence. So our ideal goal would be to have the funds, everything in place so that we could break ground in 2027 and be open by 2028.
Anybody else? I would just make a couple comments as we wrap this up. First of all, I know the hearts of these people here fairly well. Some I'm getting to know, but we all wholeheartedly understand the passion and the mission that you guys have for what you're trying to accomplish. Of course, we have fairly the same questions you're asking. How are we going to pay for this? I would say in the event that there's an ultimate rejection, don't be discouraged because there will be, correct me if I'm wrong, in the future, there's going to be a continued rollout of more reviews as more opioid money becomes available. Because frankly, from my perspective as a builder, your land acquisition cost is a very tiny part of a much bigger and more difficult package. And if it was more fleshed out at that point in a year or so, or 2 years when the next round of funding becomes available, that certainly I don't want you to feel like there's a closed door to the county because these are many of the same felt needs that we see. So I would just wrap up by saying that. So thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the time to present to us.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Thank
you
you
so
guys.
much. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Well, since we have a little extra time and I don't want to hold any, Troy, if you need to go, you can. But we were going to fill an hour and we are not. Just as we continue to think through the process here, I wanted to give us just a minute or two. I think we've realized, and I mentioned it yesterday, that it's possible to give people a very high score based on the criteria we've used, yet it still be a fundamental program that we're not that excited about bringing into the county for various reasons. We see some of these issues become muddier the more presentations we see. Not because they're not good presentations, but some are good and then others are outstanding and they offering varied degrees of services that overlap and interlock. So what I'm saying is this criteria will be useful to do the first layer of kind of winnowing out what makes sense to go forward. But the harder work becomes, how do we assemble these various components into a package that does the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people at the lowest cost? And so I would, we got a number of weeks of presentations all the way into November. But I guess I would, if I assigned a little bit of homework over the next month, not the next week, if you guys could kind of start to put together your own thoughts from your experience as professionals in the community, how you see these various pieces being able to fit together and what you guys think what the next layer of criteria we would use to evaluate these things. I mean, some of the proposals have asked for more than half of the money that we have available to us right now. And some of them are great proposals, but that comes a complicated question. What about the lesser expensive proposals that are also important? I'll use one example that's very recent. We heard a brilliant presentation from a local marketing person. We heard one yesterday from an out of the area marketing person, but with highly specialized skills. Well, politically, as one of the two politicians in the room where this matters, of course, our preference is to go local. On the other hand, if you have highly specialized experience with a great track record from the outside, we have to look at that. So none of these are very simple questions to answer. And I know you're all aware of that. In your positions, you deal with this stuff all the time. So just say over the next month, if you get a few minutes, start to jot down your thoughts, maybe assemble a few paragraphs or your own list of criteria that you think would be useful as we go to the honestly much more complicated phase that follows this initial round of work that we're doing. And we have time if anybody needs to go, but if there's any thoughts or comments on that area, I'd be glad to hear some discussion on that. Terry?
I think we have to be very careful in mulling over what these proposals. We have to be careful if there's somebody that's a very polished person in their presentation, very polished. Yesterday, I think might have been a good example. We have to sort through, and I'm not saying that was a bad program, but we have to sort through the shaft. We have to look at the program, not how well it was presented, but the program. And what does the program do for what we want to accomplish at the end of those programs?
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that's why we need a next level of criteria to analyze these things in that context. So we got a better picture of what our holistic package looks like. I think we all understand we're going to need some marketing, right? In fact, the thing I learned yesterday is we have existing programs that might benefit from marketing now, just funneling a higher percentage of people to the programs that are already here before we even enact a new program. I think we're going to need medical assisted treatment. That's pretty obvious. We're going to need peer counseling. We're going to need counseling for adolescents, for adults. Obvious that telehealth is going to become some part of this. Transportation becomes a part of this if we're going to use the more conventional model of bringing people into a facility. I mean, this is a complex package and, we will have a number of years. This isn't the be all and end all with this first round, but I think it's important that we put together a paradigm that really helps us now and in the future have a good sense of which way we're going. And we need to rely on you guys who have years of experience in these areas in a way that I don't as a remodeling contractor, certainly. So other thoughts? Anybody else want to share a thought? Gary?
Kevin, I like your approach a lot. I'd rather have us be proactive instead of just being reactive. Whatever we can do to think this thing through and I think there's people in this room that have a better understanding of what the world's really like right now and where the needs are really there. And of course, us being a public organization, we have to be real careful. We can't look like we're just giving it to our friends or
Absolutely.
that kind of stuff. But, and I know the sheriff and the judge and all of you have have a different vision of, what the world is actually like and where the needs are. And I think it would be wonderful. I love your thinking about, can we, do more with being proactive about it and saying, hey, you know what? We're not getting any applications for such and such and such and such, but there's a serious need for that in our community, and we need to keep that on the table and see what we can do to,
Mhm.
put those kinds of programs together. So I like your approach a lot.
Good. Thank you. Other thoughts? Kim?
Yeah, I guess my question is, does this committee have the latitude to say, I like that piece of that one presentation, that would really help us to build the system that we want. And we recommend that to the commissioners to say, we recommend that you take this piece and that piece of the other and approach them as the commissioners, or I don't know if that's Francine's job, to develop what we want out of that. Do we have that latitude to present, to come to the commissioners at the end of this with just, we want these parts, not the whole?
That's a fair question. Rather than put Francine or Kim on the spot right now, I'd say give us a week to talk about this internally and see what our latitude is in that area. Because I've had the same questions. Or for instance, I heard one proposal yesterday that I like what they're doing, but the budget was quite high. Like, would you be willing to scale that down if we did partial funding? Is that something that's even available to us? I know we got to be a little careful because we put together criteria for proposals. On the other hand, we have full authority as a commission to say, we reject all of these and we're going to do this in a different fashion. So I mean, it just creates a lot of, backroom questions that we need to answer before we come forth and make clear statements, before the public on what we can or cannot do. But I think those are thoughts all of us are having. I also asked Francine, and this is just my idea, it's obviously not a proposal, but transportation is not just an opiate issue for the county. Transportation for people for work and a number of things is a serious problem. And, we look at several proposals asking for transportation money. And as a county that's involved with Lenawee Transportation and entities like that, it's capital intensive, it's labor intensive, it's management intensive. So I kept thinking, is there not a granular way we can try and solve that problem without spending a lot of money? Here's a theoretical. Let's say there was a need for 5 people a week to get from Addison to Meyer to buy groceries. What are the odds that we're ever going to coincide their schedules with a bus route that's an efficient use of fuel and labor and vehicles? So one of the things I've asked Francine to research is, and I know at least some of the rideshare apps like Uber have taken community partnerships on to incentivize bringing that kind of transportation into the community where the market's not quite big enough, but it could an annual stipend of $50,000 get us 6 or 8 Uber cars available in the community? We just don't know. But, so these are the questions that are coming out of just what we're looking at. And we know we could spend $1 million a year on putting together public transportation and still have a lot of gaps and not fit all the needs. So, this is our chance over the next few months to continue to think outside the box a little bit too on how we assemble these parts. Did the sheriff have a comment?
Well, so one of the things that we do talk about as well is we don't want the county to get into the business of any of it, really. I mean, we don't want to be the county should not be the transportation. The county should not be the housing. The county should not be. So we have to rely on all of these people that come in, and it's one big puzzle, and putting that puzzle together to have all the pieces fit in place with the right players and the right in the right way is going to be crucial. It's just a matter of figuring out, what does that look like in the first go around.
Yeah, I agree. And we won't get it perfect this first round, but we're going to learn a lot through this first pass at this stuff as we look at the funding into the future. And, we'll get feedback and we'll continue to improve. But as I've said to Francine and to Administrator Murphy, I'm pleased that we have a thoroughbred class of people sitting in this room with deep professional experience and a heart that's committed to this community. And if we can't win the race with these horses, it's going to be the jockey's fault and not the horses. So, is there any last thoughts before we entertain a motion to adjourn? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.